crack it on the screen.
Nice. Cheers.
Cheers. All right. Well, Keith, you have had an absolutely legendary career in the brewing industry. Just for our viewers who don't have the background, you have a PhD in science with a specialization in brewing, but you're probably most well known for your 32-year career at Coors Brewing, where you created Blue Moon, which is an iconic beer across the world at this point. And now, of course, you are the founder and brew master of Ceria Brewing, the only alcohol-free craft beer that I know of. I could be wrong in the grand scheme of things. We're now sitting down with many members of On Tap Credit Union, many of whom probably worked alongside you at Coors or had family members who worked alongside you. Everybody has their own story about how they came to Coors, and we're curious, what's your story? How did you come to Coors the first time, and also after you went and got your PhD and came back to Coors Brewing? Tell us about that.
Oh, you bet. And it's funny how fast time goes by, and you really have to plan accordingly. But I started at Coors back in 1986, fresh out of college. In fact, I went to the University of Colorado Boulder, go Buffs, back then, and I majored in molecular biology because I was wanting to get into medical school. My mom was a nurse at the Veterans Administration Hospital. My uncle was an anesthesiologist. My mom's sister was a nurse. So I thought, okay, I want to go in and become a pediatrician and work with sick kids. And I was all set to do that. And just about 3 months before graduation from the university, Coors put this big sign up in the labs, and I was doing lab work up there. I had co-authored a couple of articles as an undergrad, but Coors put this big advertisement up saying they were looking for someone to do research in their fermentation area. And so I looked, and it's like, wait a minute, that's exactly what I'm doing up here as an undergrad. So I went and checked it out, and there were a lot of other students that went over and saw that sign, and they called me back and said I was the most qualified since I had co-authored a couple of articles, and they asked if I wanted to start the day after I graduated. So that's when I really had to ask myself, do I want to go to medical school and work with sick people or work with beer? And I thought, I'll work with beer for a year, and if I don't like it, I'll go to medical school. But I went to Coors, and the people were fantastic, just friends for life. The conditions were great. And of course, back then, the Coors family really ran things, and they were very, very detailed in what they wanted and everything. But as long as you worked as a team and everything, everybody shared in the success of the company. And it was a lot of, it's different times, but it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it and thought, okay, I'm going to stick around here. And I told them I was going to leave to get my PhD. And that's when they said, well, what if we send you to Belgium to get your PhD? And I thought, okay, that sounds great. So I went off, got my PhD, came back, and that's when Coors wanted to get into this micro-brewed world of specialty beers. And so they asked me to create this new series of beers, which became Blue Moon. And it was a lot of fun, but yeah, it was a long career, and I did a whole lot of other things for the brewery during those 32 years. But the funnest project for me, at least, was creating Blue Moon.
That's fantastic. The theme there that I caught on to is, that question of, do I want to go and work in the microbiology field, helping sick people, or do I want to be in this world of craft brewing? And the thing that catches me is, some people may think like, well, what good is beer doing in the world? For me and for us at On Tap, I think as a whole, it's an interesting thing because we see beer as one of the things that human beings have been coming together around and sharing a fermented beverage to create community since the beginning of time, right? And so the thread there that I really like is, in many ways, beer is not just a beverage that we can drink, but it's something that creates community, which resonates deeply with us at On Tap, being a not-for-profit community chartered organization also.
It's the ultimate social beverage because you get together over a beverage, and beer is the beverage of moderation. So it's not like somebody can sit here with a full pint of Scotch whiskey and drink that. You just don't do that. Some people may be able to do that, but you shouldn't do that. And but with beer, yeah, it's the beverage of moderation. I know both Pete and Bill would always talk up about the moderation aspects of beer. You can drink a couple and still keep a fairly clear mind and socialize, because it does help a lot of people socialize. There are a lot of us who are introverts, and once you have a beer, a lot of people refer to it as a social lubricant. And it's been that way for, like you said, hundreds, actually more than 5,000 years. So it's been with us a long time. So beer is really a beverage for the masses.
Okay, so that brings me right into the next stage in your journey, and maybe we'll come back to get a few more insights from your earlier career. But now, being the founder and brewmaster here at Ceria Brewing, again, making alcohol-free beer, 0.00%. This is something that I've noticed in my own life as I've gotten older is, my goodness, like, beer may be the drink of moderation. And I love to go out to a brewery with friends and share some of those conversations. But my goodness, I do not always feel like I want to the next day. And so, we have for a long time not had a good number of options in the realm of especially alcohol-free beer. Tell me more about what created this journey. What brought you to this space?
Yeah, so the thing that really brought us to this space at Ceria, and Ceria was started by me and my wife. She's the co-founder, and the main reason was to bring alcohol-free beer to the masses, but not just alcohol-free beer, but alcohol-free beer with great taste, because there are so many NAs in the market today, but there are some that I would say need a little bit of work.
Yeah.
They might have body that's really thin, or they might have some flaws here and there. And I'm also a beer judge. I've judged a lot of these things over the years. But we wanted to bring something that really looked and tasted and felt like beer, because so many people, when they choose to go the NA/AF route, the non-alcoholic, alcohol-free route, some people believe you have to give up something, the quality. You have to give something up in order to go that route. And we said, don't give anything up. We can offer you some great tasting beers that have the body, the flavor, the foamy head, and you can socialize too. Pour it in a glass, and people will say, "Oh, what are you drinking?" And it's like, that looks like a beer. So we wanted to give people that option because, from our perspective, we're seeing more and more people who really want to limit their alcohol intake, whether it's for health reasons. Some people want to limit it because they've consumed alcohol their whole lives, and they say, you know what, I just want to see what it's like to go out and experience a weekend without alcohol. Because so many of us depend on a couple of beers or maybe a couple of glasses of wine to make a weekend fun. But what people find out very quickly is you can have a fun weekend without alcohol. With alcohol is fine, but without is also fine. You don't need alcohol as a crutch. You can have fun with your friends, with your family, without alcohol or with alcohol responsibly.
I resonate deeply with this. I mean, again, my personal experience has been when you don't have an option, then of course I stick with what I always did and continued to maybe feel like I described earlier, not always the best the next day. But the beauty is that, as you mentioned, it's when you have the options, it's not about giving something up. It's about exchanging the option for the thing that fits with the life you want to live.
Exactly. And all of us are different, and we all need options. If we were all the same type of person with the same type of personality, number one, it would be a boring world. But number two, you wouldn't need all these options. But we're all different, and that's what makes Colorado, the United States, so special, is because we have people from all over the world here, everybody, and it's It's just a really unique melting pot of cultures and makes us all different. And I think the big thing for us is we can offer a really unique taste in our alcohol-free beers for those people that want to choose an alcohol-free direction, maybe for the evening, maybe for the weekend, maybe for the month, who knows? But offer them something that tastes good, looks good, and they can actually enjoy life with it.
Okay, so that makes me curious then about the cultural aspects. What do you think you took from your PhD in Brussels? Was that sort of a critical piece to being able to bring Blue Moon to the United States and have it kind of have such a massive explosion of success? Like, I think there's obviously some cultural ties to the Blue Moon product itself. Is that true?
Oh yeah, that's definitely true, because Blue Moon, prior to Blue Moon, a lot of people didn't realize that the craft beer world was really small, very small and specialized. And most people at that time, 1995, it seems like in dog years, craft beer is almost the same thing. 1995 was a long time ago. And most people think back then that craft beer has always been around. But prior to that, most people thought of specialty beer as imported European beers, English ales, German lagers. That was unique specialty beer. But the nice part is Coors was at the forefront way back then. Molson Coors, but prior to Molson Coors, it was just Coors, and they came out with the most popular specialty beer at that time called Killian's Red. A lot of people don't realize that was the leading specialty beer back in 1995. And so it was a real interesting time, much different than today. And so, but it was right because the tastes of American drinkers were changing, evolving, and being more open to flavors from around the world, but more specifically unique, made-up flavors by craft brewers. So a lot of Americans really got the taste for unique tasting beers. And so Blue Moon came around at the right time, and I formulated it to have a really nice, appealing flavor to the American palate, because a true Belgian white that you find in Belgium, it does take a few sips, a few glasses to get kind of acclimated to that profile. But Blue Moon, that has a profile that I like to refer to as first sip likability. You drink it and it tastes good that first sip. And that's something I learned in Belgium, but also from Bill Coors many years ago. He was a proponent that a beer really should taste good at that first sip. And he referred to it as drinkability, likability, sessionability, because you could, if you like that first sip, there's nothing that's going to stop you from enjoying that whole 12-ounce can, and especially during sports, if you're watching the Broncos win or the Nuggets win, that beer really helps the whole social environment.
And even when they're losing it helps to not make it so bad.
Yeah, that's true.
Was there a moment that you knew that this cloudy beer garnished with an orange slice was going to change the American palate forever?
Yes. It's interesting because Blue Moon, when I came out with it, not a lot of people gave it any hope for success. A lot of people thought it was going to crash and burn.
Wow.
Because at that time, the other two large brewers, Miller and Anheuser-Busch, had launched their own versions of kind of a pseudo-craft type thing.
Okay.
And they both crashed and burned. So people said, oh, well then, this thing from Blue Moon with Coors, that's it's a flash in the pan. It'll be gone next year. And at the same time, though, it was just tough to educate the public about this whole new cloudy beer, because people weren't familiar with Belgian beers back then. And they saw the cloudy aspect and thought, there's something wrong with that beer, something's growing in it.
Yeah.
And so it took a lot of education back then. But the one thing I remember is there used to be a beer called Pete's Wicked Ale, and it was one of the very first specialties here in the U.S. It was a brown ale. Pete Schlossberg is the gentleman who started that company, and I knew him then. I've known him for years. He's still around, but I remember asking him, because I was waiting for Blue Moon to take off, and at that time, his beer had taken off, and I said, Pete, how did you know your beer would be a success? He said, Keith, someday you'll be in another city, not your home city, but a different city. He said, and the first time you see one of your bottle crowns on the ground, he said, that's when you know it's a success. And I remember I was in Miami doing a beer dinner for Blue Moon, and I had gone out to my car, and it wasn't a fresh bottle cap. It had been there for a while, but I went to get into my car, and it was in the dirt right there, the gravel. And I said, Blue Moon's a success. But sure enough, it really did take off. But it took 6 years of hard work from 95 to 2001 to just travel the country and get people educated about what these specialty beers were, what Blue Moon was all about. And then in 2001, that's when it took off like a rocket ship. And it just, we couldn't make enough of it. It just was, we were selling it left and right, and it passed up Killian's, it passed up Zima, if you remember Zima, and it became a really big brand. And for those that follow the numbers in the press, they would say that, report that it got up to about 2 million barrels a year. So it became a real decent-sized brand for Coors. And so it was a lot of fun because with the success in the States, then I launched it around the world, and it was fun because people like David Coors I remember he was the country manager of Australia, so I went down there and launched it and got it situated there, and then of course David took over and really made that country a nice success for all Coors products. But yeah, it's just been a fun time with Blue Moon, and fun launching it and creating something that people really like, mainly because of that first sip likability.
Absolutely. As I understand it, Ceria uses a proprietary de-alcoholization process that happens after the beer is fully brewed. And I imagine that took some serious science and background and trial and error to figure out what this process would work for it. Can you tell me more about what went into it?
You're right. You're actually describing the way we used to make our beer using vacuum distillation. We would ferment it and age it, which would take typically 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then remove the alcohol using vacuum distillation. And as a small craft brewery, we thought, it takes a lot of time and effort and money to do that. And we're a small business, and being a small business, the other thing we are is very agile, and we can move around very quickly. And so I got to work right here in our pilot brewery, thinking about how I can make alcohol-free beer using standard brewing equipment and standard yeast, brewer's yeast. And so it took about 6 months, but I came up with a whole new process for making alcohol-free beer right here in this brewery. And we actually applied for a patent from the U.S. government, and they gave us a patent for it. So we use a patented proprietary process for making our alcohol-free beer. And as of today, I believe we're still the only alcohol-free craft beer in the entire country. Everyone else is NA, non-alcoholic, meaning they have alcohol in there. Small amount, but nonetheless, they have alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, the science behind it, I feel like is mind blowing. I wish I had that type of a scientific mind.
I could get even more technical, but I want to keep it
high level.
High level, yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned something that I think a lot of our members at On Tap, our business banking members, would be interested in, which is you're a startup, you're agile. I know that Blue Moon kind of operated almost as a startup within a larger corporation. Do you think that there was one lesson that you took from that experience that allowed Ceria to really thrive?
Yeah, to me, one of the biggest lessons learned from creating Blue Moon within the big structure of Coors, where you had big brands like Coors Light, Coors. Back then it was called Coors Original. Now it's Coors Banquet. But you had these big brands, and being just this little teeny brand in there, it forced me to become real creative in how I dealt with everything and everybody, because most people, they're so busy with those big brands, focusing on those, keeping the quality up, the production levels up, that they sometimes it's hard to get anything out of them because they're so focused there. They won't focus on your little teeny brand.
Right.
So, but you find ways, creative ways to get around that, to make things get done. And for Blue Moon, one of the biggest lessons I learned was never give up. So when you have a business plan or an idea in your head and you feel it's going to work, never give up. With Blue Moon, I had that mentality. I never gave up, and against all odds, because a lot of people tried to kill off Blue Moon in the early days. Right. It's hard to believe now, but a lot of people tried to kill it off, and because it just was so tiny. And I kept with it, and it became the biggest craft beer brand in the U.S. And so with that same mentality, colleagues in the brewing industry, as well as myself, my family, it's like, just never give up. If you have an idea you think is a winning idea, never give up until you've exhausted everything.
Yeah.
Then at that point, my guess is 9 out of 10 times you'll be a success.
Yeah.
Because if you think you have a good idea, 9 out of 10 times, a lot of other people out there would agree with it.
Yeah, totally. Well, and the one other thread there that I am hypothesizing, but tell me if this is correct or not, is it sounds like one of the critical ingredients there was communication across different people within the broader company to, continue to give the product that you were creating more of their time, things like that. And also really, in a way, showing them the value, pitching like, hey, this is a worthwhile investment. So is that communication piece another critical part of it?
Very critical, because when you're in that type of a position where you're not in the power position, you're kind of a couple steps below that, because you've got this product that's just very small, small market share and everything. And you really have to change everything, your attitude of how you go about communicating with people, because you find out quickly, to put your best foot forward, make sure that you appear as somebody who's knowledgeable about your specific product, your business, and get out there and convince that person that you're talking to that you have a winning product, a winning idea, and with enough practice, all of us can do that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just one of those skills that I luckily learned from Blue Moon and brought it forward to make Ceria, and I think it's a real critical skill, a life skill that all of us need to use, because whether we're coaching up, talking to people, mm-hmm. we just need that skill so that we come across as somebody who's knowledgeable, but at the same time humble, because we don't want to be somebody who throws everything in someone's face about how their status and all this.
Right.
We want to come across as somebody who's very believable too.
Yes.
And with Blue Moon, I learned all those lessons. Sometimes the hard way, but I learned them, and that's one of the biggest things that I got out of Blue Moon was really never give up, and always believe in yourself.
I mean, it sounds like a form of leadership through influence and good ideas and positive attitude, rather than leadership through direct command.
Which, to me, that type of leadership, direct command, doesn't always work the best. Maybe in the field of battle, right. But in everyday life, you do have to, sympathize with people's situations, because who knows, maybe that person came in a little late because maybe their kid was sick.
Right.
That person, maybe they need next week off because maybe they have an important family function to go to. Everybody's different, and I think you just have to really empathize and sympathize with people. And once you do that, you understand people's lots in life and everything. That's where I think you can become a very good leader and just convince people that, as a team, we're going to get through this. And even in the early days of Blue Moon, I remember there were a lot of people who were on the verge of giving up because they would say that sales, they're just not taking off.
Right.
Blue Moon is this little brand. It's just kind of going like this. And I said, don't worry, just, we believe in it. We've got a great product. And eventually sales took off. And I remember in the early days, Pete Coors would come to my office, and he would bring the sales numbers for Blue Moon. And he'd say, this thing's growing like a weed. Why is that? And I'd say, I don't know, because honestly, back then I didn't know. For me, Blue Moon my success criteria was Blue Moon would be a success if it got to 100,000 barrels. And we blew past that, and that's why everybody was trying to figure out what in the world we did with Blue Moon that made it so successful. And I know Pete was wanting to find out, what made this thing grow like a weed from nothing. What's the secret sauce there? And I told him, the things that I was doing beer dinners, educating people, all that. But also looking back, it's also the point in time where people's palates were changing and wanting something that was very drinkable, flavorful, unique, and also had an authentic story.
Yes.
And with Blue Moon, we had an authentic story, and it was really a lot of fun. And again, when you put all those things together, as long as you have that authenticity and that belief that it's going to be a success, it'll take off. And sure enough, Blue Moon, like I said, became the biggest craft beer brand in the U.S. and by that statistic in the world, because we're the biggest market right here.
What do they say? Something to the effect of luck is what happens when preparation and hard work meets the opportunity. It sounds like that changing palette came in and was an opportunity that you were certainly prepared for.
Yeah, that's right. And really, the big thing also is that understanding your team and everything, it really helps, because I can come up with great ideas, but if they're not executed the right way by your team, that idea is not going to go anywhere.
I mean, that's another fantastic lesson for our business banking members right there, is a business can make sense on paper. The numbers can all work, but we are ultimately, our teams are human, and we have to keep that in mind when we're operating our business.
Oh, yeah. Everybody has to understand their part of the big puzzle to make this thing work. And as the leader, you have to convince everybody in a really good way that there's just light at the end of that tunnel. Or, you just have to paint that picture for everybody that we're on the road to success. This road that we're on, it doesn't lead to failure. We're going to have success. And once you do that, I think that's where you and your team will just march forward, and you'll be successful.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to pause here and do one more. I think it's time, based on time frame, for us to do a lightning round, if you're good with that. So for our lightning round, rapid fire answers, we're going to challenge you to see if you can answer each of these in one or two lines.
Okay.
First one: what's the most common mistake people make when tasting a beer?
Oh gosh, the most common mistake people make that I've seen is a lot of people either wear makeup or cologne, and it throws everything off, because then you start smelling and saying, "Wow, this beer smells like perfume." Or that's just one of the biggest ones.
Interesting. I didn't even think about the olfactory component to.
Or they'll have just brushed their teeth, and it's like, it's minty, minty fresh.
In one word, how would you describe the Denver craft beer scene right now?
Right now, I would say in one word, mature. Yeah, because it is mature, and we're seeing some businesses struggling. A few are having success. But I think the big thing is that for the first time, we're starting to see more breweries close than open. Not by a huge factor, but definitely it's there, it's visible. So I think mature is the word I would use to describe the market right now.
Yeah, I've had some heartbreak moments with some of my breweries that I like closing. So if you could have a beer, Ceria or otherwise, with any historical figure, who would it be?
Oh gosh. I would have a beer, actually two people. One is Louis Pasteur, because he's the one who actually, his very first studies were on beer, and he figured out you could pasteurize beer and it'll stabilize it. And with that, his studies, people were able to build on that and really advance the science of brewing. And then the other one would be Adolf Coors, because somebody who stowed away aboard a ship as an illegal alien. They got caught. They had to work off their passage, work their way west, and then ended up in this little mining town called Golden, Colorado. Made a a really high quality beer, I would just want to ask him, a lot of questions on, number one, why in the world did you want to come all the way out here? But I mean, other questions too about brewing and, how they brewed back then. Because being at Coors for so many years, I had access to all the records, and a lot of them were written pristinely by hand by the brewers back then. And there were some comments that were in German because, prior to the World Wars, a lot of the workers were Germans who spoke German at the brewery. And so there's some German there that I couldn't translate. But Adolf, really, he had his vision. And I would want to just kind of ask him, what was your vision? What were you thinking? And what was his vision for the future for that particular brewery? Because it really was a big, successful brewery. And of course, Prohibition put an end to it for temporarily, but it bounced back and became great. So those are the two people I'd love to talk to.
Those are fantastic answers. I want to talk to them both. Orange slice or no orange slice?
Orange slice.
That's my preference for sure. What is, if there is one, the golden rule of brewing?
Oh gosh, to me the golden rule is quality is job one. You have to have a high quality product, because if you don't, you might as well just put a close sign on your business, because if the quality is down, people are just, you can spend a fortune on marketing it, and you'll get a lot of people to try it and taste it, but it'll die fairly quickly because they'll tell their friends, don't try that, I tried it, it was awful. So you want a high quality product, because even with minimal marketing, it's going to spread. Word will spread that you make a great beer, and people will tell their friends.
Yeah.
And that's how we got Blue Moon to really take off in the early days, because back then the brewery didn't give us a lot of money for advertising, so we had to rely on word of mouth and the quality of the product itself. And so people would tell their friends, you got to try this beer. It has an orange garnish. It's cloudy. It's fruity. It's good. And it, slowly but surely, the word spread that it was a great beer, and it took off. And again, I sound like a broken record, but it got up to be the biggest craft beer brand in the whole country. So
absolutely.
And to this day, it's still number one. Here we are, how many years later? 30 years later? Yeah, about 31 years.
It's an amazing story. And I'm in the process right now of telling all my friends about Ceria, certainly, because the ability, again, to have an alcohol-free option has just been fantastic for me. No longer do I keep an alcoholic beer in my refrigerator, and I still will go out to a brewery to share an alcoholic beer with friends, but just that simple act of replacing my option in the refrigerator has changed the way I feel on a daily basis. So thank you for what you've done.
Oh gosh, it's my pleasure. And it's nice too, because when you're home with family, you can enjoy an alcohol-free beer and don't have to worry about, getting buzzed when you have to change a diaper or being
I'm doing a lot of that right now.
Yeah, because you want a straight head. You don't want to make any mistakes with your family. Just like with your business, you don't want to make any mistakes with your business. And that's why there are certain times when alcohol is fine. Other times when you should not be consuming alcohol. And but if you want the great taste of a beer, we finally have options.
Cheers to that.
Cheers.
Cheers to you and your financial freedom.